three of you in the room with the Ouya. I'll be out here painting bricks. And I'll just see how long until you come and paint a brick with me.
Big week, because of Bioshock and the Ouya.
Yeah, I guess
it's the 1-2 punch.
They're doing an unveiling. Is that
on the 28th?
I mean,
we've already seen it.
Right? Exactly. It is.
I'm guessing they're gonna show some games. A game, maybe.
Probably Angry Birds.
Just like probably Angry Birds.
Okay, so
I feel so bad saying that. I feel so bad saying that.
I mean, but it is. I mean, but I think the thing is okay. Here, this is the Kickstarter darling. This was last year around this time, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, this is right around the time that I'm discovering the nuances of the world of unemployment and
the internet.
$100 console sounds good when you're unemployed.
Sometimes it's kind of like I wanted to exercise my existential prerogative. I'm like, I'm not going to learn about games right now because I don't have to. So this was something I slowly kind of got wind of. But I mean, how would you guys characterize what happened when the Kickstarter was announced, what they were doing?
I feel like in the beginning, everyone was super excited about it because it was so different than what we'd seen before. And then a few days later, reality sort of set in. And like, in fact, Julie Ehrman mentioned this in her keynote at South by Southwest, that when the Kickstarter first went up, they didn't even have a website for the Ouya. So a lot of people thought it was a scam at first. Because another publication called it a scam.
Which is a very good attitude to have when someone is asking for your money.
Well, and also when somebody's asking for your money because they're going to make a video game console, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a very particular business to get in. It takes like really deep pockets and a lot of know-how. And it's, I thought it was a scam. Then when we found out it wasn't a scam, I was initially excited because I want anything that's gonna buck the 3-platform system. You know what I mean? I want anything that's going to give me the alternative.
Okay, is the buck the open source nature of it? I mean, I couldn't figure out where, oh God, I'm going to say the word, the disruption was.
The value add, what are they leveraging?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just like, you know, you hear Android games, yes, there are games that are fun to play on Android, but I'll be honest, I still think of that as a phone, as a tablet, and I don't see where, okay, now it's on my television. Are we going to see a level of sophistication of design that takes advantage of, that makes it at least competitive?
It's real interesting because so many people are down on, for the people who are down on the Wii U for not having enough power to go into the next generation here, we're talking about like a Tegra 2. You know, and an NVIDIA mobile, you know what I mean? Yes, it's constantly hooked up to a power supply, so they're able to run it at full clock speed all the time. But this is not earth-shattering technology. So that's not it.
The Ouya controller has the touchpad on it, right? Where it's not a screen, but it's like kind of like what the new PS4 controller has.
Yeah.
I feel like the Ouya will be a good jumping off point to that for developers to figure out how to best leverage that. I don't really see it providing anything for people who don't, for people who play, well, obviously for people who play AAA games, because they're not going to have most of them on there.
I think that touchpad is there for mobile developers for ease of porting. I don't think it's necessarily there for you and me. I'm coming from
that's the issue. I keep on seeing ease of porting in this. Yeah. And then it's like, well,
I don't want more Android games on more things.
Looking at the NVIDIA Project Shield, playing those games on a TV, it didn't win. I mean, the TV, it's not designed. It's not designed for the resolution of a television. Also, the gameplay isn't designed for what you tend to do when you sit down in front of a TV, which is I'm now committing myself to an hour or 3 playing a game. When it's in your hand, it's like, I can't masturbate in public. Angry Birds, Angry Birds.
Yeah, I don't usually sit on my couch and play games on my phone for like hours and hours on it. No. So they'd have to make the games a little bit more in-depth and involved, I think, to really get people sitting in front of the console for at least an hour.
The thing that we have going on here, and I think the thing that's supposed to be the big value of this, is it's the indie console, right? Like, we're hearing this a lot. Like, the Vita wants to be the indie console. The Ouya wants to be the indie console. I don't know if that's something we're at. I love indie games. No, that's my jam.
It's his thing.
But like, do I need a console for that?
Well, but also it is this. I think you've hit on it. That it's like the Ouyas turned into a unicorn, and we're chasing it through the forest. It's supposed to be this magical solution, that this upending of the corporate ownership, and I get the narrative. I just don't see that actually happening. I mean, I remember this back when I was young. There was this thing called the Phantom, and I remember it was covered in I think it was a Next Gen magazine, and it was supposed to be this open source console that I think was what the Steam box purports to be, even though there is no Steam box.
Yeah.
Really?
Because I remember the Phantom had like a controller, and it also had like a wireless keyboard and mouse that looked amazing.
Yeah, and it was just, and like it was once again that sense of revolution, like, haha, it's an open system, we'll show you corporate overlords, and it turned out to actually never come to market, and it may never have existed in the first place. But it plays on some kind of zeitgeist, and I find that really interesting.
I think people want that sort of, upheaval, and they want that change, and we want to think about like, you know, especially with Xbox Live indie games not doing really well at all, winding up being terrible, right? Xbox Live indie games wound up being terrible. So there are a lot of indie developers and people who like indie games who are like, I want to make a game for a console, and I don't want any bullshit. I just want somebody to let me put my games on a TV.
I totally see that. I don't think the majority of people are going to buy it.
No, I don't either.
Like it's a niche group, you know, the kinds of people who are into those games, and the fact that you can play a lot of them already on Xbox Live or PS3. Like, what's the need?
It scared me that at South by, when Topolsky asked Julie Ehrman, what games are you looking forward to? What's the game that's gonna make people want this? What can't you stop playing on the Ouya? She kind of stammered a little bit. She got a couple titles wrong. She looked off stage and she was like, what's the name of the one that I was playing? Like, at least one of those was like a mobile phone port. I got a little scared, because you have to have the game that's going to bring the people to the hardware.
I feel like they're probably struggling to hit that June retail deadline, and maybe that's part of the reason that things have been so crazy lately, because she also announced at that keynote that, well, first they sort of implied that online multiplayer wasn't going to be live at launch. Apparently that's not true, it will be, but they're not going to have like achievements or leaderboards or all of these small extras.
You know, it does Steam. And I feel like that's the same audience.
If we went out on the street, no one knows what the Ouya is.
Yeah.
No, they don't. And they keep spinning it as, she said in the keynote, again, it's not an either or decision. You can buy an Ouya if you still own an existing console because it's so cheap. When in fact, it's really not that cheap. It's $100. If you want a controller, which you're gonna need, it's $150. And if you wanna play with anybody else, it's $200 minimum right there.
Like I said, there's just a little bit too much of the unicorn here, that like good intentions are somehow going to manifest themselves as like, you know, crazy success.
Right.
That rarely ever happens.
Yeah. But you know, at the same time, like I wish them enough success to continue with this as an experiment. I want them to at least be the thing that makes people look and go, oh, you've got Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo, but maybe there is a place for somebody else. Like maybe there is a place for a different kind of game.
But what if, this is kind of like what Steam can do, if you just integrate it into the TV.
Yeah.
So there isn't a second item. There isn't some ancillary purchase that you have to decide on. That I bought the TV because I want to watch Real Housewives of Barbizon. I don't know. I just made that up in my head. But
I would watch that.
But it's like, oh, but I can also play games on this. Okay, I'll try out one. Okay, I'll try out another.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's such a simple piece of technology that it may not, it may be hurting itself by being a separate device rather than something that's just universal.
I don't see a lot of people paying $100 extra for a TV just because it has an Ouya on it.
Well, the licensing fee I think would be cheaper if they put it in, if they integrated it.
You just license to Samsung,
yeah,
you mass produce a TV.
Yeah, but you still need controllers to play it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the issue with integrating it is, you know, ask Boxy how that worked out, and ask Roku how games are doing on the Roku. Because they're available.
I had no idea.
I think, yeah, exactly. And I think the thing is, like, if you want a device that plays, like, if you're somebody who plays games, you go to a device specifically for games. But if you're not somebody looking for games, it's a nice little, you know, it's a nice little bullet point on that thing at the Best Buy when you buy the TV. Oh, it'll play games if I want it to. You're never gonna look.
And I guess the other thing is, we're also watching the decline of television. There's a reason I work here.
Right.
But I mean, I'm not even being snide here. I mean, the networks are collapsing. NBC is this kind of spiraling disaster of like, let's put a monkey on the air, like Lifeboat. People are going to the internet.
But I think
that's where they're seeing a lot of their programming. And that's where people are already going, and the games are already there.
Well,
I think it's the thing is why we need to put these games on a television as some kind of act of justification and legitimacy.
Because right now, you cannot get a 50-inch monitor, a 55-inch monitor for your PC, right? Like you just can't.
Angry Birds doesn't benefit from 50 inches.
But and so if you want that kind of like big living room experience, and you want to do that with Steam, like it's easy to say like all you need is to run an HDMI cable from your computer, but and use big picture mode. But the flip side of that is like the Ouya is this big, and you put it on your TV, and then you have games. Your PC is set up somewhere, and it can't be where you're doing your work and where you're watching TV at the same time. So there is something of a different market there.
Yeah, but you've now gotten really narrow in terms of that cross section of society.
Yeah.
Well, you have to consider that making indie games for Xbox is a lot harder than it is for a game like Wii U. The open source aspect, hopefully, I would imagine, I'm wishing that the open source aspect allows for a much wider range of creativity in terms of games. I don't know if that's actually going to happen.
I mean, it could be a wider range of crap. I mean, it could be the same problem that we have on iTunes and everything else.
And you know what? They showed a trailer for some game that somebody made in like a 10-day game jam for the Ouya or something. It was awful.
Yeah.
It looked like a tech demo that somebody made
If you
when
go
they were
to
12.
If you go to Ouya Forum and you look at the list of confirmed games, it's so many ports, so many quick jam games, like so many. I just keep coming back to that South by thing, and I'm wondering why they couldn't close the deal on an exclusive that would have made Julie Ehrman excited, and why they didn't have the money to shell out to get somebody to just make a game for them.
I'm really hoping that they do have an exclusive, because they keep saying that they have exclusives, and the fact that they haven't mentioned them at all yet makes me think that maybe there's some kind of embargo or something. They can't talk about it yet.
We don't even know.
I would have agreed with you. I think, unfortunately, given the kind of evasive answers that came out of this thing at South by Southwest, that gave me a little bit of discomfort. Like, hold on, this might.
Yeah, because it didn't seem like
we might be pulling this out of the oven a little on the early side.
It didn't seem like she was also answering questions in a way that was like, oh, I can't talk about that yet. It was like she literally did not.
I think they're scrambling behind closed doors to get that exclusive, and I don't think they have it yet. Mm-hmm. And Sony has already showed us, and we don't even have a release date. They've already showed us exclusives. Like, they understand that's what they need.
They're not even in the same realm as Sony, though. And I'm starting to wonder if the reason they're trying to push this out so early is because they know something's going to be happening with the Steam box later on that would completely...
I feel like Big Picture Mode just knocked on the door one day and said, hey, mind if I live here? And we're like, well, sure, Big Picture Mode. Come on in.
Yeah.
Bring all those donuts.
I love it.
It makes sense.
And I feel like I'm so worried that is the market. That was the Ouya market.
Yeah,
Oh no!
I think the Ouya market are people that have phones and computers, and that you really have to kind of rearrange the entire argument to say that this is a third prong that is going to be essential to your gaming experience, and that's what I haven't seen yet.
We're gonna find out, man, because I ordered one.
Right.
It's coming. Like, we've got it coming.
Good.
I got into a fervor. I was all about like the people's console.
You were the only cheerleader for this thing. Max and I are both like so old and crotchety about it. We were just like, ugh.
I was just like, indie console.
You know what? Once the day it comes, I'll bring you like a Mao vest and a Castro hat, and we can just have a real good collectivist moment sitting down.
Bring a lot of liquor, because we'll either need to celebrate, or I'll be in a real sad, self-destructive mood. One of the two.